Good evening, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Season 2020 update, part of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for July 25th, 2020. Recorded around 7:52 p.m. Eastern Time, a little bit later than usual because of Hurricane Hanna. But we do have a couple of things we do want to talk about today, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, over here in the Central Pacific Basin, we are talking about Hurricane Douglas, which will bring significant impacts to portions of the Hawaiian Islands. Hurricane watches have been issued for most, if not all, of the islands except for one up here, the smallest island up here. We do have hurricane warnings for portions of the islands. This will be a hurricane on approach, and Hawaii is not really used to seeing impacts like this, and this could bring rather significant impacts to the island chain over the next few days or so. This is positioned at about 11 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time to the east-southeast here of Hawaii, moving off towards the west-northwest here at 18 miles per hour, so it's rapidly moving, and by later tomorrow night, this is expected to be making landfall here in Hawaii. So the biggest concerns right now for all of the Hawaiian Islands is going to be heavy rainfall, flooding, strong gusty winds, isolated power outages, that sort of thing. Luckily, this will be weakening on approach into the islands, but the way the island chain is shaped with the orographic lift, which is basically a fancy way of saying the train inducing convection and thunderstorms, with the way that is set up across these upward sloped mountains here on the upward sloping sides of this, is going to cause for some fairly heavy rainfall in this area, and could cause for an increase of winds right there at kind of that inflection point between the top of the orographic lift and the start of the downslope side of it. So there is a lot that we do have to talk about with Hurricane Douglas. And if we take a look here at the IR satellite presentation from tropicaltidbits.com, again, you can see the Hawaiian Islands over here. That's the big island right there. A lot of dry, stable air, so this is not really going to strengthen much, but the sea surface temperatures in here are a little bit warmer than what it traversed a little bit earlier during the day today and yesterday. So you can start to see some of that deeper convection with cloud tops now approaching minus 70 Celsius again, even some minus 80 Celsius being thrown in there from time to time. The eye structure itself has degraded significantly. You're not seeing an eye structure, but again, it was somewhat of an annular hurricane, especially yesterday, and what that means is there's very little banding that's actually taking place, but what does happen is it's fairly resistant to rapid decay, so that might keep it a little bit of a stronger system on approach to the islands. But so for you folks down there in the Hawaiian Islands, the residents and visitors there, make sure to take necessary precautions, as this is going to be making landfall tomorrow in Hawaii and could produce some significant impacts. Again, it's expected to be a hurricane on approach to the islands, so make sure you all stay safe with that. We take a look here at the sea surface temperature anomalies that's updated as of yesterday, July 24th. You can see a couple of things here. We are heading towards our La Nina pretty nicely. This area is traversing fairly well, and as we progress throughout the next several days to weeks, we're going to start looking at this map less and less, because now's the time where, as we head closer to the peak of the season, these sea surface temperatures are not going to, really change all that much. Obviously, we're going to see persistent cooling out in this region and persistent warming out here in this region. I mean, these water temperatures in the main development region are just absolutely ridiculous. Just, almost a full degree Celsius above the long-term average. That continues even into the southwestern Atlantic, the Caribbean, even the Gulf of Mexico, where Hanna's making landfall right now, all the way up, off the Carolina coastline. And this is going to matter here in a few days or so when Invest 92L, which now has about an 8 out of 10 chance of developing, an 80% over the next 5 days, and that's going to be heading closer to the Lesser Antilles. So we'll take a look at that here in a few moments. But first of all, to Hurricane Hanna, rather, very impressive little system that did develop, and it did exceed a lot of expectations here. Maximum sustained winds still at 90 miles per hour, and hurricane warnings still in effect for portions of the Texas coastline, all the way up from the Del Rio to just to the north and east of McAllen, Texas, and the Rio Grande Valley here north of Brownsville. This area did come in a little bit to the south of where we expected to, but this is now expected to weaken to a tropical storm by tonight, and then be on its way to rapidly weakening into a tropical depression, and really not being a factor here in Mexico by Monday morning. But this is going to dump a lot of rainfall in this area, where rainfall amounts still exceed rather about 10 inches or so of rain. And if we take a look here at the expected rainfall amounts, what you do notice is that we have isolated areas of 10 inches, even some isolated areas of 15 to 20 inches of rainfall in and across the southern portion of this tract, because this is going to now be approaching some mountains here. So obviously the upward sloping areas are going to receive more rainfall because of an orographic lift effect. That's going to cause more rainfall. This is also going to help to kill the system off even further. If you take a look here at what's going on in the radar presentation from Corpus Christi radar site here, Brownsville is just off or just down here. That's Brownsville right there. This is Corpus Christi. So we do notice that this is a fairly large system. We still have a very well-developed eye-like structure. If we kind of take that down here to the one radar frame, and if we can also kill off some of the other things here, we'll kill off the polygon alerts. There we go. So you notice what we're seeing here is a fairly well-developed eye-like feature still. You notice how our METARs in this area are picking up that center of circulation quite nicely as it's kind of moving its way inland. This was a fairly healthy storm even a couple of hours ago, and if we kind of back that up to right near landfall point there, you notice we have a fairly well-developed eye even well into the landfall cycle, and that's even continuing now. So we're still going to see, this is still about 80 to 90 miles per hour, you know, at the time of recording this, and that's still bringing heavy winds and rain well inland. This is basically US 77 that runs all the way up here, and that basically originates and goes down towards Brownsville, and then that also continues up to near Corpus Christi. And again, this is McAllen right here. That's Rio Grande City right there. This is a fairly healthy tropical cyclone still, hours after making landfall here. It made two landfalls because it came in here about Padre Island and then made a second landfall here. But this is a fairly impressive little system, and we've been talking about how people need to prepare always for a system to be stronger than it is. It wouldn't hurt to do so. We talked about this even before this was forecast to become a hurricane, and it became a 90-mile-per-hour hurricane, caught a lot of people off guard. So it's very important to understand that these tropical cyclones are fairly unpredictable in their intensification patterns, and this goes to show a fairly impressive little system. Our first Atlantic hurricane, almost a category 2, is only about 10 miles an hour away. Some of the gusts were reported over 100 miles per hour down there in some of the areas like Santa Monica and Port Mansfield. Some of those areas recorded gusts over 100 miles per hour. So very impressive little system now moving inland, and is going to dump a lot of rainfall here over the next few days or so. Heavy rainfall now is going to be the biggest concern for the Texas and Mexico areas. Again, heavy rainfall can kill people, so take this seriously even if you are well inland from this, because this is going to be a significant problem still over the next few days or so. Now, if we take a look at what's going on here in the sea surface temperatures at the very top of the water here, the very skin temperatures here from the CDAS methodology from tropicaltidbits.com. Again, real quick look here in the Eastern Pacific Basin, the Southeastern Pacific, fairly warm water temperatures Nothing to take advantage of it though, because the Atlantic Basin is now chugging along and is going to produce its I named storm probably by the end of next week. And again, water temperatures even out here at the landfall point of Hanna rather is about 30 Celsius still, so water temperatures haven't really been affected. Now it takes a day or two to lag behind, so we will ultimately wait to see what they look like here in a few days. But the water temperatures out here in the far eastern Atlantic Basin, fairly warm. Again, these sea surface temperatures are certainly more than enough now to support tropical cyclones in the main development region, especially once you get past about 40 west here. Once you get past about 40 west longitude, that is where your better chance for tropical cyclone development is going to be, south of about 20 north latitude here and west of about 40 west here. And if you go actually in the southern MDR, it's completely more than supportive of tropical cyclone development. If you take a look here at the upper ocean heat content values updated as of this morning, a couple of things to point out here. First of all, where Hanna made landfall at, which is in this area right here, you notice how these upper ocean heat content values were in this kind of green to yellow color, and we talked about the scale of this, and we talked about you don't need these deep reds over here, but this scale, once you start getting into the light greens and then certainly the darker reds, that's fairly indicative of that very high upper ocean heat content values. And everywhere basically where I'm highlighting here has that significant upper ocean heat content to support tropical cyclones. You notice how that's now creeping up into the main development region. And one of the things that I do want to point out, look at the date. It's July 25th, people. This is not August 25th or September 25th. This is July 25th. So if this didn't scream it was going to be a busy season, I don't know what to tell you, because this is the look of a very busy season, and especially for the islands out here that almost had to deal with a hurricane. Luckily, Gonzalo actually dissipated and is now a remnant circulation, a remnant low in the Caribbean now. Luckily the islands didn't have to deal with a hurricane, but if this was, if this was a little bit bigger of a system, the only thing holding it back right now was the dry air. That's not going to be a problem for a 92L. And speaking of 92L, this is the model guidance tracks valid as of 18Z or 2 o'clock this afternoon. And here you go. So the models within the next 24 to 48 hours carry this westward into the main development region, into a more favorable area where this can now start to develop. So within the next about 2 to 3 days, the next is likely to try to go on to be a tropical cyclone. And for you folks in the Lesser Antilles, especially north of Barbados, it's going to be kind of a 1-2 punch. It was south of Barbados this time, with Gonzalo that needed to watch. Now north of the islands here, really all of the islands need to be monitoring the progress of Invest in 92L, because this is not only going to be a high chance of development, this is likely to go on to be something. And real quickly, if we take a look here at the forecast here from the National Hurricane Center, once again, this area is 92L with a 50% over the next 48 hours and 80 over the next 5 days. And for you folks here in the Lesser Antilles who can't seem to catch a break right now, I know that this might be the last thing you want to hear, but basically everyone from the Trinidad and Tobago all the way up through Puerto Rico and Hispaniola and the Dominican Republic and St. Croix, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, needs to be paying attention to the progress of 92L. Again, just because, this is forecasting this to go north here at Barbados on the 18Z guidance doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the case, tomorrow during, the 18Z runs there. So fairly important to not just, focus on the exact track of the model guidance right now. And one of the problems, we can pull up a real quick visible not visible satellite, but overall a satellite here, Again, it's a very broad, disorganized system. It's not very organized right now. Again, you know, it's very hard to pick out where a center actually is, but this is still very far to the east right now, and this is going to take its time. It's a larger system, and I can kind of, if we go back to the water vapor imagery here, we can kind of broaden this view out a little bit. You notice how this is a much larger system than Gonzalo was, and that is going to help to not only further allow this to actually go on to develop, it serves more of a latent heat release potential driver in the atmosphere, where this can now kind of create a bigger environment for a system to work with. There is still dry air to the north, and yes, it is going to struggle over the next 2 or 3 days or so, but after that, it is game on, and we will likely see development here by early next week. Probably, if I had to guess, by Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of next week, this will be a tropical cyclone. And if you take a look here at the GFS forecast, the 18Z run, the 850 millibar vorticity, or the spin in the atmosphere about 5,000 feet off the ground. What's what here? This is basically Hurricane Hanna right here making landfall, and this is our little system right here, 92L. You notice it is a broader, bigger system than Gonzalo, which was this about 18 hours ago. But you notice what tends to happen, and gets organized pretty quickly, and that's a little cyclone that we have by hour 54 out there. That's a fairly small cyclone, and look what it does. This is before 5 days. So we have a cyclone here that is likely going to be developing within the next 48 to 72 hours. So within the next about 2 to about 4 days, this is probably going to be another tropical cyclone moving into the Lesser Antilles general direction. So for you folks here in the Lesser Antilles, now's your time to start thinking about what you're going to do once again for your hurricane preparedness plans. You know, obviously it never hurts to, you know, start practicing them, start figuring out what you're going to do. Even though this hasn't developed, and it is going to be a little bit hard to nail down a specific target area until it does develop. Of course, you know, now's your time where you want to start putting your plans in place. This slams into the islands, you know, after that time, and now the target is kind of set for Puerto Rico, St. Croix, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, places that were kind of impacted by Irma in 2017. Well, you know, let's just wait and see what happens. And on the contrast, you know, this is the European forecast model showing it coming into the islands and strengthening out here after the next about 5 days or so. But this is likely a developing cyclone within the next 96 to 120 hour forecast point, approaching the Lesser Antilles. So for you folks there, once again, it's time to start watching and putting your hurricane preparedness plans in place. So we do have a lot to talk about. One thing that I don't really like, and that I'm not a big fan of, that makes me a little concerned, and I don't really get concerned, but this big high ridge of high pressure right here, that's just driving this cyclone into the Caribbean and the Lesser Antilles region. That cyclone it's just massive. And you notice out here, we just kind of play a little bit of a devil's advocate. You know, what if, you know, this, you know, this ridging of baits right here might leave an alleyway for this to turn out to sea. Who knows at this point? But that is a fairly decent signal. Right now, I'm concerned about the next 5 days and what impacts it could bring to the Lesser Antilles. So for you folks there, now's the time to start monitoring and putting your hurricane preparedness plans once again in place, as we have Invest 92L to track once again. Again, it's going to be a very busy season. It's only July 25th, so imagine what late August and September is going to be like. I don't even want to speculate, but boy, we are soon going to find out. So unfortunately, this is the season that we're in. We have to deal with it, but we'll get through it all together. Again, I'm doing some, right now, some project upgrades to our hurricane cameras. So in the event that we do have to deal with something this year here in Florida, I'll be able to put those hurricane cameras up and hopefully be able to team up with a couple of additional people to help do their research projects as well. Most notably, Mark Suddeth from hurricanetrack.com. I've reached out to him and might be in the process of trying to work with him and his team in the event that they do come down to Florida this year for a field mission. So we'll see what happens, but we are working on a lot of great things. If you guys do want constant updates, make sure to go follow me here on Twitter at MikeRomali1. Links will be down in the description down below. I am likely to take tomorrow off as kind of an off day because obviously we've been doing this for the past 3 days. So it's time to get caught up on some rest, sleep, and time to get caught up with our hurricane projects. We've been very busy pumping out updates with, Hanna and Gonzalo. Now's the time to focus on the projects so that we can be ready for when something does come our way this year. All right. Hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Well, evening now, really. And have a great day tomorrow. I may or may not do a video update tomorrow, so don't be surprised if I don't, and don't be surprised if I do. I'll just have to see what my current plans are for tomorrow when I get to tomorrow. All right. Hope you all have a great rest of your evening. I am Mike Romali, and I'll see you guys back here then, either tomorrow or on Monday. Stay safe, everyone.